Hello friends! Thank you for clicking on my video today, and if you are a returning subscriber, a huge thank you to you guys. I love character archetypes. As a writer, I have studied character archetypes extensively, and I actually had an entire musical theater class all about prevalent character archetypes in musicals. Today I am starting my 6-part series on character types. I was inspired to make this series after seeing a ton of posts on Facebook and Instagram of people asking, what is my character type? Hopefully these videos will help guide you in finding what your character type is, and also serve as a reminder that a character type is not the end-all be-all of what you can play. The 6 character archetypes that I will be discussing in this series include the ingenue, the broad, the leading lady, the leading man, the funny man or the funny woman, and the villain. Without further ado, let's begin. So today I'm going to start on a type that I am extremely familiar with, the ingenue. I often get cast as an ingenue. I am a lyric coloratura soprano. First things first, what is an ingenue? The TV trope's definition of the ingenue is a young virginal woman with the purity of a child. Seems simple enough, right? Well, no. Within the archetype of the ingenue, there are also subtypes. Today I am going to take a few examples from musicals, operas, and plays, and talk about some of the characteristics of these characters and where in the ingenue spectrum they fall. There will be spoilers ahead. Musicals. The ingenue is a prevalent character type in classical musical theater. Common characteristics of a musical theater ingenue include being a lyric soprano, usually very beautiful, gentle, naive, often the damsel in distress, and the romantic lead. 2 actresses that often play the ingenue are Kelly O'Hara and Laura Benanti. A lot of ingenues in musical theater are clumped together. However, not all ingenues are created equal. So let's start with a character that I've actually gotten to play, Joanna Barker from Sweeney Todd. Joanna is far more of a cynical ingenue. She starts off the musical as a typical straight-laced ingenue. She's very pretty, she sings a gorgeous aria, she encompasses a lot of what a typical ingenue is. However, as the musical goes along, it's quite obvious that she doesn't hold the same idealistic beliefs as a lot of more typical ingenues do. She's very cynical. During Kiss Me, she has a very morbid outlook on her fate, and honestly, I completely understand why. She just goes through a downward spiral. She represents a loss of purity. What I think is so tragic about Joanna is that she has the potential to come out of this situation unscathed, but she doesn't. In the end, she actually ends up killing a man. People do not give Joanna enough credit as a character. They write her off as being weak-willed, but she's really not. That's another video for another time. The interesting thing about Joanna is that she can be played in a more satirical light as well. Betsy Jocelyn's portrayal is extremely satirical and very interesting because I've never seen anybody play Joanna quite like her. We all know that the real ingenue of the show is Antony, and yes, male ingenues exist. More examples of cynical, twisted, character type satirical ingenues include Cunegonde in Candide. Philia is a satirical ingenue in If Anything Happened on the Way to the Forum. Polly Peachum is definitely a cynical ingenue in Threepenny Opera. She is actually written to be the ultimate pessimist according to some of Brecht's writing, which I find very interesting. Let's talk about a few examples of a more typical ingenue, of a more idealistic ingenue that isn't quite so cynical or twisted or warped. A typical ingenue is very reminiscent of a Disney princess. Think of Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. She holds on to that beautiful, lovely, idealistic nature that a lot of the cynical ingenues lose throughout the course of the musical. This is not to say that the idealistic ingenue does not have a character arc. Let's destroy the idea that ingenues are two-dimensional and weak, because most of the time that isn't the case. One example of a more idealistic ingenue is Cosette from Les Miserables. She is wonderful, she has a beautiful soul, she's always extremely optimistic. Even though she has been dragged to hell and back, she still believes that there is good in humanity. I really love Cosette. Other examples of the idealistic ingenue include Maria from The Sound of Music and Lily from Carnival. I often get cast as the cynical ingenue in musicals because I tend to just be extremely cynical. I can also play satirical roles well. I've done classic ingenue work, but I think I personally am better at playing the cynical ingenue. Opera ingenues are quite reminiscent of the musical theater ingenue. After all, musical theater stems from opera. However, not all sopranos in operas are ingenues. Most ingenue roles in opera are sung by lyric sopranos or lyric coloraturas. Dramatic sopranos will usually not sing the role of an ingenue. Tosca is not considered an ingenue, and that is a role typically done by a more dramatic soprano. I like to categorize opera ingenues into two categories: the comedic ingenue and the tragic ingenue. Comedic ingenues include Adele from Die Fledermaus, who is not exactly your typical idealistic ingenue. She's very funny. Zerlina from Don Giovanni, who's very much a typical wide-eyed ingenue who's very silly and young, but she's played as a comedic character often. And Rosina from Barber of Seville. Fun fact, Rosina actually was written as a contralto. So not all ingenues in opera are sopranos. The tragic ingenue is definitely what it sounds like. They go through this extremely tragic character arc and they often die in the end. Some examples include Lakme from Lakme, Juliette from Romeo and Juliet, and Mimi from La Boheme. Plays. There is usually a lot more freedom in plays when it comes to playing an ingenue and writing an ingenue because vocal range isn't really a part of it. For example, a girl can sing Ado Annie, who is more of a broad, from Oklahoma, and she can play Hero in Much Ado About Nothing, who is definitely the ingenue of the show. The role of the ingenue in plays is often played around with quite a bit, and it's far murkier as to who is an ingenue and who is not in plays as opposed to musical theater and operas. Let's talk about Blanche Dubois from Streetcar Named Desire for a moment. Blanche tries to play the ingenue throughout the entire first part of the play. She pretends to be a frail, delicate southern belle who is soft-spoken, but her behavior, as it's revealed later in the play, certainly does not reflect her being an ingenue. I think what Williams does is he presents to us someone who is very obviously not an ingenue because she's a little older, she's been around the block to say the least, but she tries so hard to be something she's not. And again, that's a video for another time, but that's one example of playing around with the ingenue archetype. You have, of course, cynical ingenues, character ingenues, satirical ingenues. Eliza Doolittle from Pygmalion is definitely an example of a character ingenue, maybe even a little bit of a cynic. She's definitely young, she's an ingenue, but she's also kind of tough and very stubborn. Shakespeare writes a lot of character cynical ingenues. The ingenue can definitely be played straight and idealistic. Laura Wingfield from The Glass Menagerie is definitely a great example of a typical ingenue, and her story is just so heartbreaking because you root for her. Vendla from Spring Awakening is definitely a tragic ingenue. Now that that is all said and done, you might be wondering, well, how do I know if I'm an ingenue and what type of ingenue am I? Think about your personality, because personality plays a lot in casting. I'm a cynical person. If I kind of bring that into an audition room, I kind of play the part of a cynical ingenue in the audition room, I'll probably get cast as a cynical ingenue. What is your comfortable vocal range? Can you sing a soprano part comfortably? I can sing alto, but it's not really where my voice sits. Now, for opera, it's a little trickier because lyric and lyric coloratura are not one and the same. Can you sing coloratura passages with ease? Are you more of a lyric singer where you can sing long phrases? It's important to know these things because it really will help you in an audition to go for the character that you think you best suit. Looks also definitely play a part. However, things are definitely changing in the casting industry, which is such an awesome thing because we're giving more people who are great for roles the opportunity to be roles, whereas 50 years ago we wouldn't even look at them for that role. Don't count yourself out. You also don't always need to stick to type. Even if you consider yourself an ingenue, even if you don't always have to stick to your type. Let's say you're a leading lady and you want to play an ingenue. Go for it. Don't let your type hold you back. Anyways, that is it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video, or at least you found it somewhat informative. I really enjoyed making this video. Join me next time in this series when I discuss leading men. And of course, if you like my videos, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic because everybody has differing opinions and I would love to hear some other opinions. Anyways, thank you so much, you guys. I love you so much and I cannot wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.